just arrived. He'll be here in a second.
Yeah, he's just passed.
He's coming that way? Okay. So, thanks for coming out today. I think most of you know each other, not everybody, but for sure we have our newest member, Mike Smith. And I would encourage you, if you like croquet on steroids, to talk to him after. He's got an awesome outdoor game. Which actually, Mike, you know what I was thinking, is that when the weather is a bit nicer outside, we could do a hub member hammer game outside.
Hub hammer.
Hub hammer, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that another time. So the purpose of today is to update members on things that we've done, things that we're going to be doing, and also to give you a chance to voice questions, ideas, things that you're like, I wish we had this, or I wish we had that, or why don't you do this, or why have you done that? So any of those types of questions. There's myself, of course, Aaron, and Mike, who's here, who's going to be doing just a quick couple minutes talking about the building as a whole, as well as answering any questions that have to do with the physical facility. All right, so to start, Aaron's going to just talk about big picture, New Vision Unlimited stuff.
So if I understand, I'm doing 5 minutes, you're doing 5 minutes, Mike's doing 5 minutes, and then there's questions. Is that right?
4 minutes.
Got it. Keep it brief.
Hold on, I'll get the timer for you.
Awesome. Okay, so Graham asked me to just take a few minutes to let you know what New Vision Unlimited is doing overall. So those of you who are not aware, New Vision Unlimited is a not-for-profit community development organization that founded the Hub. And here you guys are, if you look at one of the branches of what we do. There's the Hub. We have other things that we do, but you may not necessarily be exposed to those on a day-to-day basis. So I thought I would give you kind of like the, literally in a nutshell, version of each of those things. And if you want to know more, obviously you can ask me. So a few things that we're doing. One is, I'll start with the ones you might be familiar with, Impact Arts. So that's Stories for Social Change. So we collaboratively create a story that addresses a social issue of cultural or historical or some sort of significance to a group in an area, and then create some sort of piece of art. So this poster that's back here, the Autumn Springs film, is the most recent project that has been completed, and that was looking at the issue of sexual assault, but from the perspective of men and the choices that they make and how they treat women. We are also working on a theater production here in Huntsville, and that one is sort of expanding on some of the things that we learned through doing that work, which is the sometimes hilarious and sometimes tragic things that happen when adults and youth try to talk together about relationships. So a little bit of comedy there, but also a little bit of seriousness, addressing some of the issues that some people feel are under the surface here in Huntsville. So I mentioned that, and I start there because one of our initiatives is called Building Communities of Trust, and that kind of sprang from and is built on some of the work that we've done with this film. So this film will be touring to high schools and elementary schools to a lesser degree, maybe the 7 and 8s. And along with that will be a workshop, 2 workshops, I guess. One for the youngers, which is all based on healthy relationships and building cultures of consent within classrooms and communities and families. The second bit is working with teenagers, and it's teaching them how to be upstanders. So not bystanding and watching while various things go on in our midst, but actually taking action. And I think this is incredibly important in light of Me Too, because there's conversation and a whole lot of people going, now what? Where do we go from here? So this one I'm particularly excited about because it's so timely and it's been so well received. So actually in a week and a bit I'm going to start to do that work with the teenager bit, and I've already started quite a long time ago doing the elementary school, and I have a team of people that I work with up north. So you may not meet them, but they exist. They're part of that branch. The other bit that's sort of related is New View Child and Youth Counseling, which is Graham and Heather predominantly. And the reason for starting the counseling under New Vision is that we believe that in order for people to be active members of creating change in their communities, they have to actually feel like they've owned themselves, taking change and ownership of their lives. And when young people don't have access to timely and affordable mental health services, then they're often find themselves always in the bottom of the pile, where other people then get jobs to change somehow their unfortunate circumstances. So everything that we do is always about empowering people to create the change they wish. So we feel like that's an important starting point with young people.
So it directly addresses the massive, like sometimes 2-year-long wait list that you would get down the road. And a lot of families or youth themselves can't afford private counseling sessions if they don't want to be on a wait list. So I am weekly meeting people, youth who have been waiting for a couple of years for some kind of service, and of course their issue goes from this to this. So that's just from a perspective of mine as to why we put it under New Vision. So there's a subsidy allowed under the not-for-profit organization, and I would say about 50% of the kids or youth that I work with are subsidized.
And both Graham and Heather are registered psychotherapists. I just want to mention that. So those are kind of 3 that you might see as related. The other 2 that kind of relate to each other. So one is I do a lot of consulting and planning. So in particular, collective impact planning, which means you get a whole bunch of people together that have different perspectives on an issue. And instead of wasting time, everybody doing the planning in their own pillars, forgetting or not noticing other parts of the challenge, say homelessness, right? Instead, you get people that can see it from many perspectives together. And I use a type of planning called charrette planning, which means that you get together for a condensed amount of time, sometimes as short as 3 to 5 days, and at the end you have a plan. And you run with that plan, and it's very cost effective and makes a whole lot of sense. And is an effective way of doing things that are problem centered as well as opportunity centered. And if possible, put the 2 together. Community development, professional development. So oftentimes, right, when people say, hey, we're in this particular situation as an organization or a community, we want to be over here. How do we get there? There's often capacity building that needs to be done to get them from one step to the other. And Graham and I both have done a fair amount of that. So we will work with people from, basically from ground zero to get where they need to go. With that is the mediation and facilitation and things that kind of go along with sometimes dealing with difficult situations. And the last one is innovative education. So I'll quickly jump over to here. So part of social entrepreneurship projects, we have a few things on the go, and it kind of connects with the innovative education. So for example, in one community I'm working with, they're rerouting their curriculum so that at one school it's all related to food sustainability. And they recognize that the school system not only fails their Aboriginal students, but actually fails many students in preparing them for workplace. So what they're doing is they're focusing on food sustainability, entrepreneurship, technology, so both like science technology and growing food, but then also web-based, so learning how to market and sell and connect with people all related to this food. And then of course culture, so a way to regain their culture and their language. So that's an example of a big project that kind of came out of some of the planning and some consulting, as well as just this desire to have some sustainability. And these are sort of things that even here in Huntsville, I'm interested in working with organizations who want to become more sustainable through their own enterprises, as well as private enterprise that says, hey, how can I become more rooted in a social kind of moral or ethic? So that's another little bit of what we do. I don't think it was 4 minutes, Ryan. I saw you hold up your your hand, but that's as quickly as I could possibly speak. Time's up. So there you go. That's in a nutshell what's going on right now with New Vision. Projects change as our membership changes and as people become involved with their own interests, but that's what's happening right now. And I do want to mention a couple things. One is that Chris Gilmore has started working with us on some projects, as well as we've had the opportunity to collaborate with a well-known company who are helping to do some website design, as well as Fact Media, who made this amazing poster, as well as Creative One, who's done lots of work, as you probably know. Who else? iAutomate.
Yeah, don't start listing because we'll miss some. And then...
Okay. Well, my point is it's neat to see how there's starting to be crossover. That while you may not see all of these projects happening in front of you, you're contributing to them. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll go and then you, Mike. You okay with that? You're not like, you don't have to go anywhere. Or you're not, okay. All right. So my task now is just to, since I know all of you read diligently the email about the year in review. Good day, Paul.
Hey.
I will not.
He's here.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go through, just highlight a couple of things that happened last year for the hub, just in case you missed some of the things that happened that were really positive. And then I'm just going to quickly list a couple ideas that we have for 2018. And there's a couple of times where I'm hoping for some of your feedback, so you got to stay awake and be attentive. First of all, so we turned 2 years old in October. And what's that?
Almost walking, that's right. Very true.
We're on solid food, right? Is that right? And in this last year, I think that one of the biggest surprises that hit us was how much construction happened, and I think that for a lot of people that was like, whoa. There was a plan, and it got fast forwarded, and I think in the end it's been a really good thing. But there was definitely some days where people couldn't get work done. But phase 2 and phase 3 all done in 1 year. The downstairs, which we added, we added of course a main floor entrance, 5 offices, 2 of them being shared, so there's multiple businesses in there. We now have a ground floor meeting space, which was important for some of the businesses, and washrooms down there as well. Phase 3, upstairs where the Masons were. So that includes 6 office spaces, a members lounge, the phone booth, which I've noticed more and more people using, so I encourage more people to keep using that. It's a great place to make phone calls and things like that. We'll talk about more of that later. But some of the things that some people don't realize possibly is what Harrower Properties has been doing also in the background. So the hub, we do get a lot of credit for what's happening, but Harrower Properties is making a lot of it happen as far financially, with staff, hiring people. So things like elevators, we did contribute $50,000 that we got from the grant money, but Harrower Properties has put in much more than that to have it make it happen for the building. Things like LED lights. Yesterday and this morning, Marshall was putting these in. So Mike has got, basically it's 1 for 1, is that the idea? So wherever you saw a light, it's being transformed into an LED light. So it's energy saving, better lighting, and just updates the building overall, which is great. And there's much more than that happening as well, but lots of construction that I think all of you are mostly aware of. And just quickly to list the people, you probably know a lot of these people now because they were here so much, but of course Joel Harrower Sr., who was like the general contractor, making sure everyone did what was supposed to happen. So thanks to him, and Joel Jr. For a lot of the work he'd researched and stuff that he did. Chris Hill, I don't know, is Chris here? I did ask you. I tried to find him so he would be here, but Chris has been, he's like the detail guy, so he's the one doing all the jobs a lot of times people don't want to do, so thanks Chris. Jimmy and Garrett, Terry Gone for the electrical, Chris Salter for plumbing, Mike Coop, who's a member here, doing a lot of the painting, and Carpet One and Bracebridge for the flooring. So if you guys see any product or saw anybody do something that you really appreciate, and you're thinking of getting them to do something somewhere else, let me know and I can set you guys up. To carry on quickly, membership grew in our second year by 30%, which we thought was great, and that's awesome for all of us because of course that allows us to access more resources and partnerships. It just builds everybody's business. See you later, Sophie. Sophie has a phone call. We supported 8 businesses / not-for-profit organizations, both financially and with free or subsidized resources. So that's our commitment to providing support to business in Huntsville to help them grow, or organizations, community groups, just to help mostly that would be social improvement. So groups that are working with a certain population for social need. We provided practice interviews and employment education for 7 locally unemployed youth. 6 of them to this point has found employment, which was nice. And that was, some of those were in combination with the YMCA program as well. We completed 26 hub talks of various topics. We had 3 community-wide events that supported a lot of our businesses here, especially the one down in the warehouse there that we did. A lot of you sponsored that and had your names and had booths, and it was great to have that as well. We installed some tech stuff, so the cell phone booster, as we were exploring and developing the other side over here, realized there was a lot of dead spots, so we invested in quite a high-tech phone booster, which has, I think, done its job. And the last thing is we've also had 5 different local artists display their work, which has been really great to see. And I know a lot of people have contacted the artists and done their own thing as well, which is great. And finally, a couple of ideas for 2018. Thanks, Chris. One is we together, but I especially have really want to focus back more on programming. So the networking side of the hub. Been spending a lot of time getting my hands dirty with the construction and whatnot, but I really